Welcome everyone to Wrasslin Raw!
All right, you're listening to Wrasslin Raw, the podcast that takes you back to when Monday Night Raw was uncut, uncooked, and uncensored. Thank you for joining us. You are here with Ryan Arico.
Oh, yes!
Joe Gimateo.
I have some news to share with you guys about a purchase I made this week. Last week we talked about Louis G. and Frito and WWF Magazine. So I thought, wouldn't it be cool to own some old WWF magazines? So I went on eBay and bought the 1995 lot of WWF, the magazine, brother.
Beautiful.
All 12 issues. So I will be well prepared for 1995 when we get there.
That's good to hear.
The single most expensive fire hazard you'll ever purchase.
Some of those articles, I assume, are written by your father.
I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah, and speaking of, when did Vince Russo get into the magazine?
92, I believe.
So he might be in there with some articles too, right?
Yeah, Vic Venom or whatever. I think that's the name he was using.
I'm Jason Bartlett. That's no relation to Rob Bartlett. And we're going to examine WWE history one episode of Raw at a time. In this episode of Wrasslin Raw, boys, we're going to be talking about the Raw that aired on September 26th, 1994. This Raw was recorded at the Memorial Auditorium in Utica, New York, and features Vince McMahon and the Macho Man, Randy Savage, on commentary. Are you guys ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yep.
Let's get into it. So the opening of the show here is Vince absolutely roaring at us about Tatanka enjoying the spoils of his betrayal. Now, you'll all think back and remember fondly the single greatest heel turn in the history of professional wrestling, and that's what this is in reference to. Tatanka will be facing Razor Ramon tonight in an attempt to win the Intercontinental belt. After giving us that tidbit of information, we go into the intro to the show. And I haven't noted here, it seems like they're really starting to really get into adding small fireworks displays to the show. We're starting to see that more commonly with the beginning of the show and with a couple of the superstars' entrances. And I don't know if you guys noticed this, but please correct me if I'm wrong, but for the very first time, they introduced the gentleman at the Spanish announce table. I did not catch their names.
Yeah. Both Vince and Macho screaming "Hola" at both of them.
I guess that's the only Spanish he knows.
Yeah.
After saying hola to them, Vince pitches tonight's edition of King's Court, featuring the British Bulldog. And Macho Man says the Bulldog's bite is much worse than his bark. We get an on-screen graphic of the British Bulldog with his hair down instead of in cornrows. And I have to say that it just does not look right for me. It doesn't work for me. I need cornrows on my Bulldog. Tonight, we're also going to have a tag team champ match. Not for the belts, though. Shawn Michaels and Diesel will be in action. And the Macho Man starts going on about how this auditorium in Utica, New York is going to be the courtroom for Tatanka. Tatanka has all the resources of the $1 Million Corporation, but Razor Ramon has the championship belt. And as we all know, possession is 9/10 of the law. And Vince says, give it up for Randy Savage, the barrister, everyone. Pretty action-packed intro, guys.
Can I just ask why Tatanka is getting a IC title shot here? Like, that just came out of nowhere, right?
Pretty much. I mean, it seems like we've spent a few months now where Tatanka has we haven't seen him that much, either in Raw or anything really. So I don't know if this was just kind of a late push to try and get this Lex Luger Tatanka feud back going and showing that Tatanka is a legitimate contender. But But yeah, it is kind of odd. There was no lead up to this. It's just all of a sudden, hey, we've got Tatanka versus Razor Ramon for the belt here.
Yeah, it's almost like let's make one last run at trying to put Tatanka over.
I also noticed that this episode, it was mentioned a couple times, but there's far less talk from Vince and Macho about what a tremendous blow to the Native American people this was. They really toned that down this episode.
Oh, they do mention it multiple times, just not as many times as before.
Right. We finally get our OJ reference here when talking about how the eyes of the people are not in LA, but they're here in Ithaca, New York.
Yeah.
I think the Macho says the jury has been selected and the trial's about to begin.
Yeah. With Tatanka, he didn't really need much of a push. Well, he kind of needs a push now, but before he really didn't need much of one. If you guys remember, for almost all of 1993, Tatanka was pretty front and center for most of the Raws. He was part of the All-Americans, or no, he was going to be part of the All-Americans, but the Undertaker replaced him, right?
Right. He was injured, so the Undertaker had to sew the American flag into his undercoat.
It's only since we've come into 1994 that Tatanka has kind of taken a B squad role, but now they're looking to change it.
He did have an IC title shot against Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 9. I have a couple notes about that in my notes here about this match when we get to it.
Okay. Well, speaking of, let's just head straight into it. First match of the night. Razor Ramon defeats Tatanka by countout in 13 minutes and 35 seconds to retain the WWF Intercontinental Championship. Tatanka comes out first with the $1 Million Man laughing ahead of him, being great as always. Thankfully, Tatanka did not try to do the laugh this time. Razor Ramon comes out second, and the camera shows a blonde mother of two in the crowd creaming her jeans over the sight of Razor. Looked like she was about to have a fainting spell. Macho Man says that Tatanka used to be all about pride, but nobody is proud of him anymore, not even the Native Americans. The pyro that I talked about before, pyro's going off for Razor Ramon here, and Macho says that Razor's career is on fire, so to speak. Vince thinks that this is a hilarious comment. Tatanka kicks things off by attacking Razor from behind with some punches, moving him to the corner with knife-edge chops. Razor switches it and gets some chops of his own in, then slams Tatanka into either corner and then transitions that into a pretty nice hip toss. Once Tatanka gets up, Razor clotheslines him out of the ring. When Tatanka gets back into the ring, he puts a knee to Razor's gut, goes to work on his back. Razor rallies with some punches, but Tatanka cuts him short with a solid clothesline. Vince keeps going on about how Tatanka has sold out and that he used to be a role model but is no longer. Razor catches Tatanka by the back of the hair and throws him face first into the ground, prompting Macho Man to comment, "That's what they call the old equalizer." McMahon says, "You don't want to mix it up street style with Razor." And then Macho replies that he likes Razor because he's from the Macho family, oozing machismo. Can you dig it? This is just a really slow-paced match, but there is a lot of body work happening here. There's a lot of wrenching joints, holds getting applied, and after one such hold, Razor briefly paintbrushes the back of Tatanka's head, and the crowd absolutely loves it. At this point, I noticed and noted that both of these guys have really, really strong mullets. We're often, awash in a sea of mullets when it comes to wrestling in the 90s, and a good strong portion of those mullets are taken up by the enhancement talent, as we'll talk about later. But I just want to note that in their own respects, both Razor Ramon and Tatanka have very, very strong mullets each. They're both very adequate and appropriate for their gimmicks. And it also was at this point that I noticed that there was a sign in the background saying, "Scalp him, Tatanka." The match maintains its slow pace. Really not a lot of fast-flying action going on here. They start a slap contest outside of the ring while we cut to commercial. We return from commercial, and really not much has happened here. Tatanka is using some dirty tactics here, but nothing at the level of other real heels. I think he's still trying to grow into his new position as a heel. After a series of 3 body slams and a 2 count, Macho says that Tatanka is close to getting the belt. Tatanka has begun to slowly dominate the match, but the pace is still very slow overall. Tatanka puts Razor into an abdominal stretch. This is where I started to get a little bit interested. While he has Razor in the abdominal stretch, and when the ref isn't looking, Tatanka's reaching out through the ropes to hold hands with the $1 Million Man to get some additional leverage on that stretch before the ref catches him. And they go back and forth doing this a couple times. I also noted here that I didn't get which ref this was, but the ref is doing an excellent job of painting the story in the ring for us during this exchange, this whole abdominal stretch routine. He maintains alternate focus between Razor, Tatanka, DiBiase, going back and forth, checking on one, yelling at the other. Just really doing a fantastic job here, juggling the three of them. Finally, the ref catches the $1 Million Man, helping Tatanka, makes him break the hold. Tatanka starts laying in some kicks. And after a few series of events, Razor puts Tatanka on the top rope for an elevated back body drop. The $1 Million Man is distracting the official and then distracts Razor until both guys end up outside the ring. Now, while they are outside the ring, Lex Luger starts to run down the entranceway wearing some kind of weird cut-up USA 1980s women's exercise shirt. Before he can make it the whole way there, Bam Bam Bigelow comes down and jumps him from behind, holds him up. Tatanka leaves ringside to go and lay in hits on Luger with Bam Bam while Razor climbs back in the ring. The bell is rung to signify that the match is over. Then Razor leaves the ring to join the brawl, beating on Tatanka while Luger beats on Bam Bam. We're going to end this by cutting to commercial. Discussion, let's get it started. Ryan.
I really enjoyed this match. I thought it was a great start to Raw. Started off with the Intercontinental belt match, and as much as me and the rest of Wrasslin Raw here disliked Tatanka, I thought he did a pretty good job selling in here. I mean, he wasn't the best heel in the world. There's no doubt about that. But in ring, it was very believable. Both him and Ramon are good in-ring workers, regardless of gimmick or not. So this was a pretty entertaining match that lasted, 12, 13 minutes for the crowd. Yeah. So I think they kind of got their money worth here. The worst move of the night was, I think, Razor Ramon kind of hit an ugly reversal before the abdominal stretch. And that was really the only mishap between the two. A couple things I wanted to point out. I thought it was a bit odd that Tatanka came to the ring in his traditional clothing. No headdress, of course.
Of course.
But I thought it was odd that both his clothing and music has not changed yet. It will in the near future. He'll get a little bit darker clothing. I'm not sure about his music, but he came out as just kind of the old Tatanka, the music and everything. I thought this would have been a great opportunity for him to come out as like a sleazy casino builder or something, I mean, it would have fit so perfectly. But all in all, I thought they both did a pretty good job here. And to start Raw off, except for the ending, the fact that it's a count out, kind of ruins this great long match that they had going on. But it's just the beginning. It's not like this was some long feud that they're trying to bring to an end. This is just the beginning of this Raw. So it's not entirely terrible that they decided to end on a count out. And I thought overall it was a pretty entertaining match. I liked it.
Much like the blonde woman that you mentioned, I too creamed my jeans when Razor came out. I'm really noticing, and I've said this before, but I'm really noticing, I've heard a lot of interviews and stuff about Scott Hall and how he really knows the business and the psychology of wrestling and everything, and how smart he is with all that. And I'm really starting to see it just by watching some of this old stuff, just watching his entrance, taking his time. It's kind of like you could sort of compare it. I mean, obviously it's not anywhere near this, but it's kind of like The Undertaker when he comes out, he takes his time, makes the entrance something worth waiting for. So I like that he does that. I agree with you, Ryan. I think it was a pretty good match overall. I kind of expect this is the type of match you would expect a finish like this. That's not a clean finish.
That's what I was saying. It wasn't unexpected.
Yeah. So I wasn't upset with that or anything, but obviously they're building this feud with Luger and Tatanka. And I agree with both of you. I don't think Tatanka is ready to be a heel right now.
Yeah.
I mean, he came out, he smacked some kid's sign as he was entering the ring, but
yeah.
I mean, other than that, like, I don't know. He just wasn't, he didn't have the facial expressions going. And I don't know if you guys noticed, but there was a lot of talking in this match. Like you could hear a lot of spot calling between Razor and Tatanka. So, and I noticed that when he faced Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 9, there was a lot of talking in that match too. So I don't know. I don't think Tatanka is really that great, but this was a decent match. And it looks like he gained weight too. Tatanka looked like I don't think he got fatter, but he definitely gained some weight.
Right. He's thick. Tatanka is, I mean, his legs are like tree trunks. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't really have any commentary notes. I didn't really note anything. I liked when the camera cut to Vince and Macho, like the camera was like right on them for a little bit. I thought that was pretty cool, but I didn't really have any notes about that.
Yeah, I don't think there were a ton of standout commentary in this match because for the most part, they were just calling the match.
Yeah.
Because it was the two biggest names of the night wrestling each other. So yeah, they didn't spend too much time on the usual schlock and they just kind of called the match.
Yeah.
Right.
I also loved seeing all of the foam razor blades in the crowd as Razor came out. Yeah. He was getting a huge response from the crowd. They really love him at this point.
Yeah, he's definitely a better babyface than a heel during this period. The other thing with Tatanka is, like, does he know any wrestling moves other than kicking and chopping and the occasional, he had the abdominal stretch going for a while, but he doesn't really do a lot of wrestling moves.
Well, I mean, he has to save up all of his energy to skip around the ring in a circle.
Yeah.
Which he did not do this time around. That's something that only babyfaces do, apparently.
Yeah. The traditional skip.
Yeah, the summoning the power of the ancestors, I am assuming.
Bones of his people.
Chakotay. I'm not as up on this match as you guys are. I didn't hate it, so I'm not gonna bury the shit out of it, but it was definitely a slow burn of a match. And like I said in my little rundown there, very physical, but just a slow kind of physical. And I think I might be spoiled on the high flyers and big spots nowadays. I didn't see this as much of a positive. You know what? No, I take that back. This was a good way to start Raw. And I do agree with you in that just because of the nature of the match and the nature of what's going on here, the count out is acceptable. I'm not pitching a fit about that like I did with the whole Dumpster and Lawler match.
That was supposed to be the end of a feud.
Yeah. This is the count out here is fine.
Well, the cool thing about this too with the count out is they went straight to commercial. Like that, like this thing's happening outside the ring. Then they're like, well, we're going to commercial. So I think that kind of helped it too.
Yeah, that's something that I've noticed they've been getting a lot better at is their, I don't know what exactly you would call it, but like their production of the show, being able to do things like cut out during the slow points and cut out during a time like this when, they leave us kind of on the edge of our seats. Part of the visual storytelling is the last we saw that they were fighting in the entranceway, and we cut to commercial like, oh my God, what's going on? And come back to normalcy being,
So did either of you notice when they came back from break and he explained what happened, there was someone behind him with a sign saying Martians exist? Did you guys see that?
No.
Yeah.
You're talking about Vince?
No, yeah, right behind Vince, right in this scene when they come back, there's a fan holding up a big sign that says Martians exist, and that's it.
Huh.
Was it Tom DeLonge from Blink-182?
It might have been.
Jeez. I did not see that.
Just thought I'd bring it up.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry that I missed it. That'd be a lot better than scalp 'em, Tatanka. So yeah, after this commercial, we come back to Vince and Macho at ringside. This is when Vince tells us that Razor has been declared the victor by count out because we didn't get that officially before. We just had the bell ringing. And during this little aside, Vince is pitching the Heart Attack Tour and says to Macho, oh gosh, then says to Macho, by the way, when's the last time you had a checkup? And this is pretty unfortunate in hindsight. Macho says he's off a beat or two. Did either of you guys feel a little bit of a twinge at that?
I mean, not only that, but like knowing all the wrestlers that die prematurely from heart attacks, like
pretty much everyone they're going to talk about here: Paul Bear, Yokozuna.
Yeah, it's kind of odd, but hey, whatever.
Okay, well, I was just making sure that I wasn't the only person here with a fucking heart, but apparently I am. So I felt bad for it. Come on, guys, it's Macho Man. We love him. He's off a beat or two. All right, so we're going to go away from ringside into another segment, and this is going to be a promo from Paul Bearer and The Undertaker. This was fantastic. This promo aired on Superstars this past weekend. Paul Bearer is standing over a casket with the urn, wailing about the heart attack tour. What a perfect name, Yokozuna, because there will be a heart attack, all right, and it just might be you. You're the one that was responsible for the demise of my Undertaker. And then the Undertaker now says, Yokozuna is forewarned. He never rested in peace, and now I have risen from the depths of darkness to search for your soul. This time, Yokozuna, the heart attack tour, your carcass goes in this casket and your soul comes with me. Rest in peace. I knew you'd be popping a chub.
Yeah, I was. The whole your carcass goes in the casket and your soul comes with me. It was just so beautiful.
On the heart attack tour, everybody. It'd be great if Undertaker just switched to his radio DJ voice to plug the heart attack tour.
One of my favorite parts is right after the Undertaker says, your carcass will go in the casket and your soul comes with me. He then says, Yokozuna, you will rest in peace. And then they pan back and Paul Bear, he's shaking his turkey neck as he points to the casket.
Yeah. Probably having a heart attack.
I also noted this boiler room they were in seemed to have maybe a little too much steam.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah. So coming out of that, we're going to get into our next match. Are you guys ready for this? The master of the martial arts, Kwang, with Harvey Whippleman defeating Rich Myers by pinfall in 2 minutes and 6 seconds. Not a whole lot going on here. Harvey Whippleman leads out the master of the martial arts, Kwang, while Rich Myers is in the ring waiting for them. This is going to be a squash match. After an awkward start, the master of the martial arts, Kwang, starts laying in punches, and eventually at one point, Rich Myers manages to get a very weak-looking Hurricane Rana on the master of the martial arts, Kwang. Vince, being topical as usual, starts talking about some kind of three-way deal between the Arizona Cardinals, ESPN, and the WWF, where the Macho Man is going to be the Cards' new quarterback. I specifically noted that I have no idea what he's talking about here at all. ESPN is going to get Luke and Butch from the Bushwhackers for ESPN Game Day. Then Vince congratulates the Packers for their win over the weekend.
Also, Phil Simms will be taking the Macho Man Randy Savage's announcer spot. That was in the three-way deal.
Oh, that's right.
That was the part you missed.
That's right. Meanwhile, in the ring, the master of the martial arts, Kwang, hits Rich Myers with a heel kick to get the 3 count. Right before we cut to commercial, Vince quickly informs us that this past weekend, Jerry the King Lawler has destroyed Dink's tricycle. Joe, what did you think about the master of the martial arts, Kwang, in this match?
Well, you didn't have much to say about the match, and neither did Vince. I didn't understand the football reference. They did say that Reggie White's son was a ring announcer at a house show recently.
Yeah, and I believe the King said something to him. Yeah,
they did something to probably get the crowd fired up. But
right.
And I think you wanted to talk about Buddy Ryan, too, because Buddy Ryan, like a year before this, was famous for punching that other coach on the sidelines. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, just look up Buddy Ryan punch on YouTube. I'm sure it's on there. The guy's like in his 60s, and he's throwing a punch at another coach, like on the same team. So Buddy Ryan was the coach for the Cardinals, and that's why he was talking about that. So I don't know. I thought another thing that Vince did that was funny was they were talking about something. I'm not quite sure. It certainly wasn't Rich Myers' mullet, but they were talking about something, and Vince, as Quang is taking off his mask or whatever he had on, Vince was like, "Speaking of ugly,"
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys heard that. Speaking of ugly, like right as he's taking it off. Yeah, I don't. This was a waste of a match.
Yeah.
But hey, whatever. It's a jobber match.
For me, the biggest takeaway was at the very beginning when the beautiful mulleted Rich Myers reverses the body slam into that beautiful head scissor takedown, follows it up with a double kick to Quang's face. It was like, yeah, Rich Myers, he's actually mounting a little bit of an offense here. But you knew it wasn't going to go anywhere when Vince McMahon, while he's doing this, just pretty much ignores it and starts into his bullshit three-way deal talk about Phil Simms, Randy Savage, and the Phoenix Cardinals. He doesn't even care that Rich Myers just hit some beautiful maneuvers. He just ignores it. So I guess we're supposed to too. It's a 2-minute match. Quang hits his wonderful martial arts
Excuse me,
he
who?
comes away with the 1, 2, 3.
Excuse me, who?
The master of the martial arts, Quang.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he hits a masterful martial art kick, and that's how he wins. What a surprise.
Yeah, I'm on board with you guys. A throwaway match. But hey, it filled 2 minutes. I think we're dancing around what the real point is here. Jerry the King Lawler destroyed Dink's tricycle. What the fuck?
Yeah, that was brought up. He even, after he popped his balloon, he was forced to apologize for popping a balloon. What is Jack Tunney going to make him do over destroying a tricycle?
Well, we know that Doink won't put any wrestling moves on Jerry Lawler because he doesn't. I don't think he knows any.
He'll squirt him with that lapel flower full of midget piss.
That's Dink.
Yeah.
Well, where do you think he gets the juice?
The squirt gave him a squirt.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he milks Dink for midget piss. So, throwaway match.
Little people.
That's your phrase, not mine. So, we're going to exit that with a commercial, and when we come back, this is going to be King's Court with Jerry the King Lawler. And when we come back, he's walking down the entryway to come into King's Court, but then we have to cut to another commercial. They want us to all have a look at Lex Luger working out, all hepped up on some Icapro. Whenever he tells us that we have to want it, and I don't believe him at all, we come back, and the King is ready to go. The King is in rare form here tonight with these dog puns. And the thing about them is that none of them got old. None of them got tedious. I was enjoying every word of it. Lawler asks if any of the peons out there have pets, because we are going to be talking about pets. And no, a cockroach on a leash does not count as a pet. I laughed heartily at that. He's talking about a dog, and there is a new dog in the WWF, and he's going to be his guest. Vince talks about the Rocket's red glare as the British Bulldog comes down to the ring.
Yeah, I had that noted too. For a British guy.
Yeah. Well, see, I didn't know if that meant that he was just mistaking, because, you know, the whole British color scheme is red, white, and blue. So I didn't know if he was just mistaking that, or if he was being like kind of a pervert, you know, since we're talking about a dog and the Rocket's red glare.
Well, no, he said it as the red pyro was happening.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. Well,
yeah.
My mind took that.
But still,
really
it's a
bad direction.
It's a British guy coming out.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's quoting the national anthem. Again, I need to note here that the Bulldog's hair is not in cornrows. It's just really disturbing. The King is calling, here boy, and whistling to him. Once he gets up there in the ring, the King says, don't get him wrong. He likes dogs. He has his own dog at home. He got him from a used cur lot. That was my favorite. Did you guys like that one? The cur lot? No? Aw, come on.
Crickets.
His dog's name is Timex. He's a watchdog. Uh-huh. He has 1 million of them. Davey boy, did you hear that Snoopy handed in his resignation? He got tired of working for peanuts. which I don't even know how many people nowadays would even get that joke. He mentions Vince McMahon's toupee. He says they got that from the hind leg of a dog, and every time he passes a fire hydrant, one side of it raises up. He starts to get a little weird here. Do you like to play when you get done wrestling, or are you dog tired? And then your wife's name is Diana. And at this point, the Bulldog is starting to be like, whoa there, don't need to go there. But the King continues on. She's the daughter of Stu and Helen Hart. When you met, was it a case of puppy love? This is the point where the Bulldog gets on the mic. And for his first statement there, his accent is very thick. I had a hard time understanding him. But then it kind of evened out, and he says if there are any more smart remarks, they'll be picking the King up off the mat with a pooper scooper. Of course, Jim the Anvil Neidhart now shows up climbing into the ring. And the Anvil doesn't know why the Bulldog was even at SummerSlam in the first place. He's not a family member, even though the Bulldog is related to the Hart family in the same way that the Anvil is. This was a really stupid exchange here.
Yeah, I was doing some head scratching there.
Yeah. For our listeners there, just in case you don't know, Jim the Anvil Neidhart is married to one of Stu and Helen Hart's daughters and is the brother-in-law to
one
Owen
of their
Hart.
28 daughters.
Yeah, 3 of which were just born a couple days ago. Brother-in-law to Bret Hart and Owen Hart, and the exact same thing can be said of the British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith. He is married to one of Stu and Helen Hart's daughters. He is the brother-in-law and all the same. So the Anvil calling out the Bulldog like this was just completely moronic. He goes on to say if the Bulldog sticks his slobbery dog's nose in the family business, he should take on the Anvil next week on Monday Night Raw. The King confirms that the Anvil is issuing an official challenge to the Bulldog. The Bulldog reminds us all of the relationship he has with Bret Hart, how they are good. And the British Bulldog is back in the WWF, and he's part of the new generation. He makes sure to get that tagline in there. He accepts the Anvil's challenge for next week's Monday Night Raw. And then the Bulldog's music starts playing while the Anvil is shouting over it that this will be the worst decision of the Bulldog's career. And then the Anvil leaves. The Bulldog finishes up with some lines about how it will be the best thing for his career. And it looks like he's really struggling to come up with good lines to kind of end this out on. Ryan, did you want to give an opinion on King's Court?
I enjoyed this King's Court for a few reasons. The biggest being I felt that it was more compact than the other ones. Like this one actually felt like it was just a few minutes long, and the timing just felt perfect for this length.
Probably because neither of these guys can talk.
Yeah,
right. Yep. but regardless, that for me it made for a more enjoyable King's Court because some of them just drag on a little bit too long. This one was perfect length as far as I'm concerned. I'd like to see the British Bulldog back. I always love the British Bulldog, so that was great to see. You covered most of the points here. There, it's not a match, so There's just a little bit of a back and forth between him and King. I just wanted to point out that, man, does the Bulldog look extra ripped and extra tanned right now?
Yes.
Man, he is huge and dark right now. So even though he doesn't have the cornrows, he's really up the muscle mass and tanning juice.
Yes. This is probably my least favorite King's Court up to this point. I'm not with you guys on this. I actually disliked this very much. I hated all the dog puns. And I hate that Bartlett just repeated all of them and I had to hear them again. I don't know. Anvil and Bulldog, they just yell every word that they're saying. And it's hard to tell. It's kind of like you said, Bartlett, it's hard to tell like what they're saying.
Yeah.
Especially Bulldog with his accent and his steroids combined with it. But I do like the Bulldog. I like that he's back. I wanted to know like what happened with him. So he was obviously started in the tag team, the British Bulldogs in the late 80s, and then he left WWF, came back from 90 to 92 and had a run as a IC champ. And there was a match. I don't know if you guys have seen it or remember it, but SummerSlam 92 with him and Bret Hart is a 5-star match. Like you should probably watch it if you got any spare time. Then he went to ECW in 92, WCW 93, and here he's back. So it's good to see that he's back because I was always a fan of him when I was a kid. He's a good wrestler. So yeah, that's all I have noted. I also had that Rockets Red Glare comment too, but we already talked about that.
I also wanted to mention when you were going on and on about the dog jokes that he was making. A few months ago, I was listening to Lawler. He was on Stone Cold's podcast, and he talked about how years and years ago, he bought this old book called 1001 Insults. It was written in like 1956 or something, he said. But he said he probably used every single joke in there. He used it as a resource for years and years. And I'd like to buy this book just to kind of look through it, just to see, recognize the points where you heard Lawler drop some of these ridiculous old jokes. I bet you a few of these dog jokes would be in there.
Yeah, no doubt. I didn't really feel too strongly one way or the other about this. I do agree with you, Ryan, in that it was a nice and short King's Court. It kind of just did its thing, got its job done, and then stopped. I enjoyed the puns. I enjoyed more the delivery of them than the puns themselves because it was Jerry the King Lawler saying them. But although I do have to say that cockroach on a leash line was fucking great. And yes, the Bulldog is just absolutely looking like a brick shithouse here. He was fucking huge. Like I was kind of thinking while I was watching this, like, I don't think he can put his arms down the whole way. Did you see him? He was kind of stuck in that upright position the entire time.
Yeah, he was giving that look when people were trying to fake that they have muscles, but I think it was legitimately he couldn't put his arms down.
He was in slightly better shape than Kerry Davis, the wrestler that featured in the next match. Slightly better shape.
We're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah. So before we get to that absolute joy of a match, we are back at ringside with Vince and the Macho Man, and this got me a little bit excited. Vince informs us that on top of this newly arranged match between the Anvil and the Bulldog, next week on Raw, we're going to have Alundra Blaze teaming up with Heidi Lee Morgan to take on Bull Nakano and Luna Vachon in a 4-way catfight.
When they announced that, I was legitimately excited.
Me too.
When they announced that.
Yeah. I have seriously developed a fanboy crush on Bull Nakano since that amazing match at SummerSlam.
I was pumped about it as well. I had a good laugh, though. Yes, I got a good laugh out of Macho Man referring to it as a 4-way cat fight. That would not fly today.
Yeah.
To highlight all of this, after they talk about it, we get video clips from SummerSlam of the women's championship match that I referenced just now between Alundra Blaze and Bull Nakano. And then they also throw in some additional clips of Heidi Lee Morgan and Luna Vachon there. We cut to commercial again, return to Vince and Macho at ringside, and Vince is talking about the incident last week with Bob Backlund and the demonstration of the chicken wing on poor little Luigi and Frito, and the subsequent snapping.
He's not even a wrestler.
Yeah, he shows some clips of that. We get all of the best highlights of that action, as well as the aftermath with Vince and Macho and the 4 refs in the ring pulling them all apart. We exit the clips of that into our next match. The 1-2-3 Kid defeating, and it was hard to hear this guy's name. I looked it up, and online it said his name was Kenny David, but I really could have swore that I heard the ring announcer say something else, Kerry Davis or something like that.
Right.
So just to give a tad bit of info here, the WWE Network, even if you look at who they have for this match, it says Kerry David, but Vince McMahon multiple times this match says Davis. So I don't know which one it is.
Okay, well, at least it wasn't just me, because I had to go and look it up because I wasn't quite sure. Well, anyway, regardless of what this poor bastard's name is.
Yeah, one thing we are sure of is Vince saying that it looks like Kerry Davis could use a little cardiovascular conditioning.
The one thing that is undeniable is Kerry David and/or Davis is not a real wrestler.
Yeah, the 1-2-3 Kid defeats Kenny David by pinfall in 3 minutes and 25 seconds. Yeah, the 1-2-3 Kid enters the ring where Kenny David's already waiting for him, and this is going to be another squash match. Kenny David looks like a poor man's Jim Duggan. That was my take on him. Within 5 seconds of having the bell rung, the Kid shows that he has a better martial arts kick than the master of the martial arts, Kwang. Vince wants to throw a special birthday shout out to Jack LaLanne. Jack LaLanne, everybody. Kenny David, as a jobber, he did a pretty good job of putting over the 1-2-3 Kid here and enhancing him. Of course, the 1-2-3 Kid is very tight with his moves. And during the match, Bob Backlund comes out to ringside wearing a 3-piece suit and carrying a nicely wrapped present. He gives the present to the
Bitter Bob Backlund.
Bitter Bob Backlund, yes. He gives the present to the Macho Man, pointing at Macho, and then leaves. Meanwhile, the action in the ring has been continuing this whole time, with Kenny David momentarily getting the upper hand until the 1-2-3 Kid delivers a couple of extremely loud chops. The note that came with Backlund's present to the Macho Man reads, "Dear Randy, because of your comments last week, I procured a dictionary so you could interpret my discord, Publian." That's in reference to the Macho Man's comments during the whole snapping fiasco last week that he needs to have a dictionary at hand whenever he's listening to Bob Backlund speak to keep up with him. In the ring, Kenny David is starting to slow down here, and the Macho Man unwraps the present. And yes, indeed, that is a big-ass dictionary that the Macho Man unwraps. The 1-2-3 Kid lands a leg drop from the top rope and gets the 3 count. And I have it noted here. I was hoping we could talk a little bit about it. The Kid looks very disappointed with this match. He even gives a look at the camera and almost like a shrug, as if to say, like, well, there it was. Joe, do you want to get us started talking about this match? Did you notice that too?
Well, yeah, he's insulted by having to be in the ring with this guy that they just picked up off the street. You said, what was your name for him? A poor man's Jim Duggan?
Yeah, to me, he looked like a poor man's Jim Duggan. Yeah.
Okay. To me, he looked like a crackhead Jake the Snake, like from 2012.
So Jake the Snake.
To me, he looked like a poor man's poor man. I mean,
I would have liked to have seen the Kid as a finisher just give him a series of pink bellies, just slap that stomach until it's beat red.
And that ridiculous Amish beard that he had.
Yeah. I loved Vince's comment with the cardiovascular conditioning and Vince reading the dictionary, and before he read it, he puts his glasses on. Let me get my cheaters on.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's all I have noted. I loved Vince was the highlight for me on this one.
Yeah, it's a fairly worthless match, obviously. At the beginning, we get Vince's birthday wish to Jack LaLanne, the godfather of fitness and the original inventor of the juice machine, in case everyone's wondering who Jack LaLanne is. But yeah, Kerry David and/or Davis, he looked like they literally got someone out of the audience before the match because someone was hurt or quit, and they put him up against the 1-2-3 Kid. I tried looking up some info about him, some jobber info. There was absolutely zero. I mean, I could not find a single shred of info about this guy. So this may be his only match. I don't know. But yeah, there's nothing to talk about here. There's at one point, they don't even pay attention to the match. You know, they're just showing Bob Backlund come down to the ring and hand this present to the Macho Man while there's a match going on, and they're just not paying attention to it because it's that worthless. So yeah, there's nothing to say here.
Yeah, I agree with both of you guys. It was kind of like that Master of the Martial Arts Kwang match. It filled 3 minutes and 25 seconds. So I guess in that respect, it did its job. I still think that look from the Kid at the end was just very, very telling. I don't know. I kind of took it to mean that it was almost breaking kayfabe and like, what am I doing here kind of a thing. But you could see him die a little bit inside.
He got pyro, at least.
He did. Yes,
he did.
And his music is still bitching.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Not as good as Adam Bomb's new song, but it's good.
Oh, gosh. So, yeah, there's really nothing much else to say. So next up, we have a promo for the return of King Kong Bundy. And I have to say, I kind of liked this. It was cheesy and not at all what I was expecting. I was completely surprised by this. It's a pre-recorded vignette of a man at a news center stating that, everybody remembers Hollywood's giant ruler, King Kong. He was a fearsome creature which wreaked havoc and caused massive destruction. Now the wrestlers here in the WWF are shaking with fear because the awesome and destructive King Kong Bundy will be making his return to the WWF. Now, there's no denying that King Kong Bundy is a huge man. However, we don't think he's 80 feet tall. And then at this point, a huge hand is like superimposed to crash through the roof. And then we see that it's a huge hand grabbing like a toy set that is made to look like this news center and crushing it. And it's like this up camera angle of King Kong Bundy standing there roaring and laughing. And then we get the announcement that King Kong Bundy is coming soon. We'll keep it quick here, but Joe, did you have any quick thoughts on King Kong Bundy here?
For the new generation, I think this is great, right? King Kong Bundy. I hated it. I hate to disrespect the guy that scored 4 touchdowns in a single game at Polk High. But man, this is dumb.
To me, I guess I'm kind of in between you and Joe. I thought it was fine. I enjoyed the like old school 80s WWF vibe they were giving from the announcer there. And it was short and sweet. I mean, you had the King Kong, he came in, he grabbed them, and then he looked menacing and laughed. It wasn't long enough for me to really hate it or love it. It was just there and okay, King Kong Bundy's coming back. Yay.
Yeah, and I just want to make it clear here. I don't love it in the same way that I loved the entire Bob Backlund segment last week. You are a Publian. Yeah, I am proud. We need to make shirts. Proud Publian. I liked it in that it was a creative promo. I totally agree with you, Joe. This does nothing for the whole new generation thing they've got going on. It's completely backward. But I liked that it was creative and it was a surprise to have, kind of creative camera work, having a little model toy set that he would crush. And yeah, that's it. That's really the only thing that I liked about it. I know virtually nothing about King Kong Bundy. I just know that he's from the 80s and we're going to shit on the new generation some more while we're screaming that it's going on. So that's really what I meant by saying that I liked it. I just liked the creativity of it and how it is something completely different than what we usually see with these kinds of promos.
Nor did I hate it like I hate Bob Backlund.
Yeah, it was better than a Sparky Plug vignette.
What? Really? My friends call me Sparky. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't, fucking art or anything, but it was a pleasant surprise. And as far as Bob Backlund goes, Ryan, you're a Publian too. So
you have dyslexia.
Yeah, I have been reading dates backwards today. So after this, we had another commercial for The Zone. I'm still kind of in the dark as to what exactly that means. I don't really care either, but it's there.
It's the Action Zone on Sundays, and WWF Mania was the other show. It's still going on too.
Oh, okay.
So there's a lot of wrestling shows during this time.
After that commercial for The Zone, we are going to go into our last match of the evening. This is tag team match. Shawn Michaels and Diesel will defeat Bob Starr and Chris Kanyon by pinfall in 3 minutes and 44 seconds. And Bob Starr is our jobber of the week. Take it, Ryan.
Thank you very much, Jason. Bob Starr is our Jobber of the Week. There's really no real science behind why I pick a Jobber of the Week. This week was solely on his ridiculous red mullet. I saw that beautiful mane hanging down, and I said, Bob Starr's this week's Jobber of the Week. And I have to admit, I picked a good one. So Bob Starr was born in 1971 in Malibu Beach, California. His family shortly moved after his birth to Baltimore, Maryland, where he would spend the rest of his youth. Bob quickly became a huge wrestling fan, as Baltimore was a major wrestling town at the time. In 1988, Starr would begin training under Bad Boy Ricky Lawless. 4 months into his training with Ricky was murdered by his former tag team partner, Vladimir Kiloff.
Jesus.
Over a extramarital affair. Yeah.
Kill him
following Vladimir's murder, following Ricky's murder, he would continue his training at Baltimore Monster Factory. He would make his debut in 1988, where he would wrestle under the names Bobby Starr, Bob Hollywood Starr, the Russian Assassin, but mainly under the plain Bob Starr. Starr would work in the independent circuit around his native Maryland until joining the WWF in 1990, debuting in a match with partner Bobby Knight in a tag match against both the Executioners, Pain and Agony, and the Legion of Doom. Starr was brought into the WWF on the advice from fellow Maryland wrestler Dwayne Gill, or Pain, of the Executioners. Starr was working at a used car dealership when Gill convinced him to quit his job and join the WWF. In 1991, he would start a long open-door relationship with the WCW that would span over 6 years, and appearing on TV for them over 250 times.
Jesus.
He would continue to also show up on the WWF, but only a handful of times. During the same time, in 91, he would help create one of Maryland's first independent promotions, Mid-Eastern Wrestling Federation, or MEWF, with co-founders Dennis Whipperchick and Tim Burke. He would remain one of the promotion's top stars for much of its 12-year history, considered the face of the company by many in the late 90s. He would hold the MEWF heavyweight and tag team belts multiple times over the promotion's existence. Later, he would move into the booker role for the promotion in the late 90s and early 2000s. In the late 1990s and into the early 2000s, while still involved in a small capacity with the WCW and his own promotion, Starr would wrestle for 75 other independent promotions.
Jeez.
The most notable of these being, the AWA Superstars, based out of Minneapolis. It was owned by Dale Ganger and Mike Schwab. In 2001, Starr was the current AWA TV champion when the promotion went belly up. Having never been paid by Schwab, Starr would keep the physical belt and continue to defend it in independent shows as late as 2010. In April of 2004, Starr would send out an email to wrestling publications that the Maryland wrestling promotion he helped create, the MEWF, was officially dead, citing differences with the co-founder Tim Burke. Today, Bob Starr is semi-retired, living in Dundalk, Maryland. He will still pop up from time to time doing interviews for various radio shows and podcasts, mostly talking about his time with the WCW and the WWF.
We should get him on here.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
He sounds like he doesn't have much going on.
Yeah. The first match, you said that was his first match in WWF, was Executioners and LOD. Is that
yes. Mm-hmm.
Do you know who won that match?
It did not say. It was not him and Bobby Knight, though. My guess is it was the Legion of Doom.
Yeah. This guy's probably a big Art Donovan fan.
Yeah, being
from Maryland.
Yeah. So you said that he was a car salesman.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, he was training to be a wrestler, but at that point he was on the independent circuit, not making a bunch of money. So he was a car salesman.
Well, as soon as you said that, it hit my brain that if I were to encounter that mullet, that flaming enormous red mullet on a car lot, I'd probably buy whatever the fuck the guy had.
I'd buy it immediately.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much for the Jobber of the Week segment there, Ryan. A fantastic job as always. And that was a truly impressive rundown on Bob Starr there. Definitely thank you for that.
Yeah, I even left out a lot of stuff. I mean, if our fans want to go out there and look up the legacy of Bob Starr, he did a lot. Hell of a jobber.
Yeah. And that right there, folks, is why we love to have the segment of Jobber of the Week here. There are so many pretty cool people out there that were perpetual enhancement talent that we should all know better, because really, if it wasn't for the enhancement talent, we wouldn't have our superstars. So that being done, we're going to get into the final match of the night. Shawn Michaels and Diesel, they entered the arena. The enhancement talent is already in the ring, ready for yet another squash match. We cut to commercial again, and when we come back, they're finally ready to get the match started. Michaels dominates with Chris Kanyon, tags in Diesel, who goes on to manhandle Kanyon some more, then throws him into the corner so his partner Bob Starr can tag himself in. And this is where I have it noted that this guy has an incredibly flaming ginger mullet that hangs halfway down his back. The domination of the tag team champs is pretty clear here, as Diesel gives Bob Starr a sidewalk slam and then a kind of a sloppy jackknife powerbomb. Michaels tags in, bounces off the ropes a few times, and makes like he's going to drop an elbow, but then he stops and gives a gesture as if to say, like, who cares? And just flops into the pin for the 3 count. I thought that was pretty funny. At this point, Michaels heads over to the apron to start to go after Chris Kanyon, but the head shrinkers show up from behind them, coming down the entranceway, but it's not the same head shrinkers. Fatu, aka Rikishi, is there, but the guy with him is not Samu. Afa is at ringside, and the guy with Fatu is not named until after we cut to commercial and come back. When we come back, Lou Albano is there at ringside, along with the Macho Man, Vince, Afa, Fatu, and the new guy. Albano introduces the guy as Sione. Sione does not look Samoan at all, and I'm sure that that's probably very dickish of me to kind of like profile a person like that, but he didn't look Samoan. Vince asks what happened to Samu. What's that?
He's Tongan.
Yeah. Okay.
He looks like the Russian dude from Street Fighter.
Yes, he looked like Zangief. Yes.
Yeah, he's the Barbarian. I don't know if you guys remember the Barbarian.
That makes sense.
That's who that is.
Okay. Well, Vince asks what happened to Samu, and Albano states that Samu caught a Samoan disease from eating some raw fish and needs a Samoan cure. Kind of makes it.
Hella kama takatoa or something.
Yeah. He makes up some shit on the fly. And then we end Raw with a video replay of the new head shrinkers taking out the tag team champs, Shawn Michaels and Diesel. Vince reminds us that next week we're going to have Jim the Anvil Neidhart taking on the British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith, plus the women in tag team action. And now apparently Diesel has been fighting to get back to the ring, and Shawn Michaels has been unsuccessfully keeping him back. Diesel more or less drags Shawn Michaels back to the ring, and we fade to black. And that's it for this episode of Monday Night Raw. So, highlights and lowlights. Joe, do you want to start that?
Yeah, I think my highlight of the night was the fact that we got a title match, that IC match at the very beginning, because that wasn't something that happened very often, especially one that was sort of unplanned. And my low light was that the King's Court segment. Like I said, it was my least favorite King's Court up to this point.
For me, my highlight is the same as yours, Joe, was the title matches to start us off with Razor Ramon to Tonka. It might not have been the quickest, fastest paced match in the world, but as far as this Raw goes, it was a pretty entertaining match. It lasted a nice 13 minutes. I think the fans got their money's worth out of it. So for me, it's by far the highlight of the night. Low light is, so if you guys remember in the other episodes, we talked about how they were filmed like 3 weeks and a month after SummerSlam.
Yeah.
This is the first one where we're back, live. So the time frame is finally caught back up. And even though that happened, we don't seem to be getting a lot of the hottest feuds that were coming out of SummerSlam being addressed here at all. So we don't see Bret or Owen Hart at all. There's no mention of them really. Their feud from SummerSlam is just not brought up at all. Kind of the same thing. We don't get any action out of The Undertaker outside of the quick vignette that's just a replay from Superstars. So I just kind of feel like there could have been some bigger stars in this, kind of in the storyline aspect, kind of building these feuds. It just felt kind of old and stale.
For highlights and lowlights for me, my low light is probably going to, well, I mean, it's a tie between all of these squash matches. And that's only because there really aren't that many like legitimate lowlights for me. There wasn't anything going on here that I especially disliked. And I'm not bitching about the squash matches per se. They serve a function. They're there for a reason, and they fulfilled that function. It's just that there were 3 of them and they killed some time. And if I have to pick something to be a low light, that will be it. My highlight for this episode of Raw was that little exchange during the Razor Ramon Tatanka championship match, where Tatanka had Razor Ramon in the abdominal stretch and was using the $1 Million Man for leverage. I mentioned it whenever we were going over the match highlights, but just that interplay between Tatanka, Ramon, the $1 Million Man, and the referee back and forth for, a good minute and a half at least was just a nice little nugget of storytelling going on. And it was, to me at least, the highest point in what was the best match of the night, if it can really be called that. So yeah, that's my highlights and lowlights. Honorable mention though goes to the creativity that they're starting to show here with their vignettes and promos. The Undertaker promo that we got, the clip from Superstars, very creative, looked good, was produced well, and even though the subject matter was kind of lame, the King Kong Bundy promo, it was produced well. It was a creative idea. So honorable mention there, I think.
To kind of follow up with what you said there, I guess kind of backing it up, that's why there was nothing in my low lights that were actually from this episode. It was more what they didn't include, like Bret Hart and Owen Hart, because overall, I thought it was a fairly strong Raw.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I would say strong. Again, not bad.
Right.
Not bad. That I do not want that to be interpreted as complaining.
Strong might be the wrong word. I agree.
Yeah. But again, not bad. We've already mentioned it, but it filled a great formula. It had a nice long championship match to kick off the Raw, which was good. It wasn't my favorite type or style of match, but you guys liked it, and I can understand why you guys liked it. I'm not going to argue about that, And then with the squash matches, they are what they are. They fulfilled their purpose. But yeah, really not a bad episode.
I think the beginning and the end were pretty good. It's your typical wrestling show. You start out with an IC championship match that gets interrupted because of a feud that's taking place, and then you end the show with your tag champs beating up on some jobbers, and then the guys that are challenging them are coming out to interrupt the match. So I think it was a pretty good beginning and ending to a show where, we've talked about other episodes where like the Bushwhackers are beating some jobber team and that's how it ends. That's how the show ends. Like, I don't want to see that. I'd rather see something like this.
I also thought you could see a distinct change in Diesel. So like just his demeanor when he came to the ring, it was much more baby faced than it has in the past.
Yeah.
There was no longer the mean looks and stroking the glove. It was more of this swagger and smirks. It was a more baby faced Diesel, and that was very clear here.
Yeah, and these two are doing a really good job of like building up to the turn, because they're slowly throwing in things like, didn't something happen with, I forget during that match, but something happened that Michaels did that like pissed off Diesel, or the other way around. I can't remember, but they're just throwing in those little pieces to kind of build up to a turn.
Those little nuggets.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's I'm glad you mentioned that, Ryan, because I noticed it, but I wasn't sure if it was just me like misinterpreting things or what was going on. I didn't know how to put into words what I was seeing, but I did notice a difference. And I have to say that I am slowly coming to see, I've slowly come to appreciate Shawn Michaels more. With this match, I saw a little bit of what is appealing in Diesel. I'm still not completely there yet, but I'm warming up to the idea of the two of them as good wrestlers.
I like that you're slowly warming up to Shawn Michaels becoming a good wrestler, but you love Ludwig Borga. Like, the Shawn Michaels guy, I don't know. He might be good someday, but Ludwig Borga, now there's a good wrestler.
Well, how many albums has Shawn Michaels released?
I think it's really great that we get to watch Diesel's progression here, because, when he first comes into the WWF, he is very, very inexperienced and green. And you could just kind of see over the months as he gets better and better, both in the ring and on the mic. So it's really quite great to be able to watch this development, happen here.
I'd be interested to see read up on his background, because he doesn't seem like an athlete to me. Like, he just seems like just a big guy. Like, he doesn't really seem very athletic to me.
Like the Giant Gonzalez.
Yeah.
Well, wasn't Kevin Nash a basketball player?
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm saying that, but I
mean,
really
he
thought
certainly
that he
has the height. Sure.
He was
Giant Gonzalez was a basketball player.
Giant Gonzalez was also wearing a hairy muscle suit. So
there's that.
The anatomically correct hair suit.
Walking around with pound for pound the strongest man. What is it again? Toughest man walking the street.
Pound for pound, the toughest man walking the streets today.
Yeah.
Buys his clothes in the boys section.
Woolworths. So now that we are out of this episode of Raw, Joe, do you have any contemporary wrestling news on and around September 26, 1994? I
have two notes from the Observer. The first note is, Ryan, you mentioned how we're caught up now because they taped several Raws at one location. Well, the bad news is they've done that again. And according to Dave Meltzer, they taped 3 episodes of Monday Night Raw at the Utica Memorial Stadium on this day. So I think we're going to get behind a little bit now again. So yeah, the filmings of these Raw episodes are just, the timing is just so odd. Obviously we know they're not live anymore, so that's going to happen. The other note I have, you guys are going to love this. So you guys are familiar with Earl Hebner. Obviously, all wrestling fans know who Earl Hebner is. They had some matches in England. I'm not sure exactly when, but Earl Hebner has reportedly suffered a broken hand, and he broke his hand because Yokozuna fell on it.
Man.
Yeah. Could you imagine having that girth falling on your hand and shattering it?
What a workplace hazard.
He's a kind of a small guy too.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And that is all I have noted here this week.
Man, poor Earl. Jesus.
Get well soon, Earl.
Yeah. All right, so that's it, folks. We're done with this one. I want to thank you again for joining us. And if you like what we're doing here and want to connect with us, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Reddit by searching up the handle Wrasslin Raw. That's WRASSLINRAW. Also, don't forget to click subscribe and get every episode of Wrasslin Raw popping up in your podcast feed. Let us know what you think. Hit us with a 5-star review or 4 3/4 if you're Dave Meltzer, wherever you download your podcasts. Next week on Wrasslin Raw, we're going to get into the Raw that aired on October 3rd, 1994, with matches featuring Bull Nakano and Gary Scott, among others. So, for Joe and Ryan, I'm Jason, and this has been Wrasslin Raw.